nutritionalist.com. The Ed Bernstein Show. Here's Ed.
Well, I'm going to help you with what I think is one of your biggest issues, your diet. With me to talk about it is dietitian Roxana Ehsani. Why is it such a big issue? Why can't we get this diet thing right?
You know, food is everywhere, right? When you walk into even like, for example, a craft food store, right? There's food. So I think there's food really everywhere. So it can be, you know, really helpful or really harmful for people when they're trying to eat healthy, because again, food is so available everywhere we go.
And it's become such a part of our social fabric. You know, I'm going to meet you for lunch. Let's meet for dinner. I mean, it's all the social events, charity events. I mean, there's food everywhere, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. You're also a registered nutritionist, registered dietitian nutritionist.
Correct.
Now, what is the difference between a dietitian and a nutritionist?
Great question. So a registered dietitian is like the ultimate food and nutrition expert. So we had to do all the sciences like any other of like the pre-med students that you saw in undergraduate. So we were doing metabolism, chemistry, biology, anatomy, and then we also specialized in food science and nutrition sciences as well. And then after we got our undergraduate degree in dietetics, we had to go do an unpaid internship for about 9 months where you're working in different settings, like in a hospital setting, food service, long-term care, and then finally you have to pass a board exam. So it's a pretty extensive process, and in 3 years they're going to require all dietitians to have a master's degree as well.
Which you have.
Which I have, yes.
And since you mentioned the word hospital, why do they have such a bad reputation for food?
I don't know. I mean, there are definitely dietitians that work in a hospital, right? And they're trying to care for people that are very ill. You know, sometimes the food is not the best. I don't really know why, but.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, historically, it's like you want to, get sick, you eat the food in a hospital. But, look, diets have changed dramatically over the years. I can remember years and years ago, we had something called the Beverly Hills diet, which was kind of a joke. It was like, what, eating a lot of pineapple or something like that? Or,
I actually haven't heard of that one.
Okay. And it was a #1 best-selling book.
Okay.
And a lot of these diets originate from being best-selling books because people are hungry for a good diet, right?
Right.
And then Pritikin was all the rage for a while until he died too young, right, of heart disease, but it was supposed to be great for your heart. Then you had, now we have this one, what is it called, Noom?
Oh, that's like a website, yes.
Yeah, Noom and keto and low carb. I mean, how do you choose what's right for you?
Yeah, so yeah, you're right. There's so many different diets out there, and these are all what you described are fad diets. So I like to say they work until they don't. So they're not really long-term solutions to your health, right? Because you're cutting out major food groups. It's not really sustainable either, right? It's not sustainable to cut out carbs, which a lot of these diets are doing, and eat like a really high protein diet, because that can cause other complications too. So, nutrition is very personalized and individualized, and we take a look at the whole picture as a dietitian, right? So if you were to come into my office or see me one-on-one for a consultation, I take a look at the whole picture. So I ask you, what's your medical history look like? What does your family history look like? I'll take a look at your lab work, right? We take a look at medications, supplements. Are you exercising? I ask you about your sleep, your stress level, because all these things can really impact your health and well-being and nutrition as well. And then once we've gathered all this information from you, we give personalized and individualized recommendations that work for you. Because again, everyone is very different. Everyone has a different schedule, budget, preference, cultural preferences as well. So we make that very individualized for each and every person.
When you look And I agree. I mean, this is so, it's got to be, I mean, so personalized. So any one fad type of diet is not going to work for everybody.
Right.
But when you look around, like around the world, you look at different countries and the health of people in different parts of the country, and then you look at Americans, are we really bad?
You know, they do say that, for example, people in France, right, are a little bit more leaner than people maybe in the US, and that could be due to lifestyle. I think maybe in Europe, I've noticed that people are walking a lot more. They're not sitting as much. I think especially, you know, during the pandemic, we're all sitting at home in front of a computer, right? And then probably after work, we went to our TV and sat there. So I think we're not as active maybe as some other people in different countries. And again, we have so much access to food, right? Everywhere you go, you can buy a snack, which is maybe not the best thing, right? Especially for people who are maybe looking to lose weight or maintain their weight. It can be challenging for sure.
One of the things that I, really struggle with, I mean, is milk good for you or not good?
Sure, it is. And you know, there's so many different alternatives on the market now. I'm sure you've seen like oat milk or soy milk or almond milk, right? These are all great alternatives for people who can't tolerate milk. And I have noticed that a lot of people that I work with actually can't tolerate regular milk. So it's great that we have these alternatives. But to answer your question, milk is perfectly healthy. It's a great source of calcium, vitamin D, and it even has some protein too, which these plant-based alternatives actually don't have. So like almond milk doesn't have much protein at all. It only has 1 gram versus cow's milk has 8 grams of protein. So you can definitely drink milk.
And of these alternatives that you mentioned, almond, oat, soy, is there a preference that you have?
Honestly, whatever the person likes, right? Whatever works for you. So for example, if you have a lactose intolerance, I would suggest maybe soy because it has just as much protein as cow's milk. So it's kind of like a 1-for-1 trade versus like oat milk or almond, again, only has like 1 gram of protein. So it's probably not going to work as well for you.
And you mentioned soy, so let me ask you about soy because there's a lot of, I mean, it's very popular now to be a vegetarian or a vegan. You have to get protein from somewhere.
Yeah.
A lot of them eat much soy.
Yeah.
But then on the other hand, I hear, hey, soy is not really that good for you.
Yeah, and I know there's been a lot of research, for example, in Asian countries, right, where they're eating a lot of soy products. They're eating edamame, right, that is made out of edamame. They're eating tofu. So they're eating a lot of soy, and that hasn't been linked to certain cancers, which I know some people are worried about here. So again, it's all up to the person, right? If you have maybe a family history of breast cancer in your family, maybe it's a good idea to maybe limit soy a little bit, not overdo it. But I mean, soy is, again, a great source of plant-based protein that vegetarians or vegans can consume regularly and safely.
And what's your feeling about plant-based diets and lifestyle compared to, carnivorous people?
So, I mean, I think it's great to eat a lot more plants, right? We're talking about fruits, vegetables, whole grains, eating more beans, lentils. And there's been some studies coming out recently, I'm not sure if you've seen, but like on longevity, and that people who live longer are actually eating more of these plant-based proteins, which are the beans, the lentils, the peas. So it actually may be better for our health to be eating more plants. It doesn't necessarily mean you need to cut out meat altogether. But again, this research is really new, and I think it's pretty fascinating too that these people are living a lot longer than maybe people that are mainly eating just meat.
And of course, some people stop eating meat for other reasons as well, right? There's environmental issues and animal issues that people want to give up meat for.
Absolutely.
Raw food.
Yes.
Is that a fad?
Yes, so I've heard that some celebrities are eating like raw meat, right? Or eating just a lot of raw eggs recently. That's another fad. But that can be kind of concerning too from the food safety aspect, right? Because if you're eating a lot of raw meat, that poses risk for a lot of foodborne illnesses, right? And they can be deadly even. So I would definitely encourage people to cook their meat and cook their eggs as much as they can and probably stay away from that fad.
Yeah, and it's oftentimes you read in the newspaper there's a salmonella or a bacteria outbreak on a certain fruit or vegetable or meat or whatever. So how do you protect against that? I mean, some of these things, it's kind of like brushing your teeth. They'll tell you to brush your teeth for minutes, right?
Yeah.
Nobody really does it. And it's the same thing with food. They'll tell you to wash it for several minutes to make sure that you're cleaning it. But what's realistic?
Yeah, so definitely wash your produce, before
With
you
soap?
eat it. You don't need to use soap. You can just use like warm water actually is perfectly fine. You don't need to use anything else. Just rinse it for a few minutes. Wash your berries, wash the lettuce. Even if it says pre-washed, I would still probably wash it at home with just warm water. You don't need anything fancy to clean off, some of that residue.
And what's your feeling about frozen vegetables compared to canned vegetables to fresh vegetables?
Yeah, so most people are not eating enough fruits and vegetables. So I say, pick out things that are convenient to you. So for example, I actually do tell people to buy frozen because frozen is already cut up for you. It's already peeled, right? And if you have a bag or two in your freezer, you're more likely to add it to a meal, right? I know a lot of people complain like, oh, I don't want to buy too much fresh produce because I'm worried about it going bad. Maybe they live alone, or maybe it's just one or two people, right? So frozen is a great alternative. And frozen is actually packed at time of peak freshness, so it still retains the freshness and flavor too. So frozen is not bad. I would definitely use frozen. And then canned is also fine. Like I'm always using canned beans because it's just convenient. I would just say rinse out the salt solution that the canned veggies are in, so you reduce that sodium intake.
So you need that piece of celery that's been sitting in your refrigerator too long. It's lost its nutritional value.
Yes,
after a
a
while.
little bit, yes.
And what have we here?
So you may have been familiar with the food pyramid.
Which you learned in school, which you now have learned is not appropriate, right?
Yes, so this is actually what replaced the food pyramid, actually many years ago. Most people, when you look down, I really like this plate, right? Because if you look down at your plate, you can ask yourself, what am I missing? And most people are, what do you think they're missing?
Dessert.
Dessert, and what do you think else?
Let's see, we have fruits, we have vegetables, we have proteins, we have grains, we have dairy. I get water.
Yeah,
Hydration.
Water's missing,
Yeah.
but usually it's actually the fruits and veggies, right? I've never had someone come and say, hey, I ate too many fruits and veggies yesterday, right? It's probably I ate too much popcorn or I ate too much crackers or things, but it's really the fruits and veggies that most Americans are not eating enough of. They used to say about only 10% of Americans ate enough, but now they're saying it's more like a little bit less than that too. So fruits and vegetables are key and should be eaten more of.
I mean, this plate also seems to have portions. Are these accurate for what's the grain portion and the vegetable portion?
So everyone is different, right? So that's not going to be everybody's plate. It's pretty small, actually. This is actually a kid's plate. I just wanted to bring it in to show you, but everyone's portion size is going to look a little bit different, based on their activity level, their age, their size, their goals, right? Their health and wellness goals. So it's definitely going to look different from person to person.
And based upon your size and I guess your lifestyle, people are often suggested a certain amount of calories per day. I mean, do you abide by that?
So, it's kind of hard for people to stick to calories, right? So if I were to tell you, hey, you get 1,800 calories, most people really struggle to accurately, eat that amount because it's really hard to count calories accurately. So I tell them, I talk more about the food itself, right? Because we don't eat calories, we eat nutrients. So I talk about how many fruits are on your plate, how many veggies are on your plate. Are you eating whole grains rather than like the white grains? So that's kind of how I do it.
So I'm gathering, Roxana, that you really don't believe in any standard diet.
Right, yeah. I mean, I definitely don't believe in the fad diets out there, and I don't think it's realistic all the time to count calories, but I think if we talk about nutrients, that's a little bit easier for people to understand and grasp.
So, I mean, barring the ability for people to go and see a dietitian, nutritionist like yourself, and they want to partake of something on their own, I mean, a lot of people, you know, they watch television, they'll go to Weight Watchers or Jenny Craig and start, you know, getting into those programs. Would you recommend that, or what would you recommend for people who really can't afford to see somebody like you?
Well, you know, myself included, we actually take insurance. So a lot of people don't know that dietitians accept insurance. So that can be great for people who can't pay out of pocket, for example. You know, and there's actually a lot of free nutrition education out there done by registered dietitians. So for example, I used to work in the community setting where all my work that I was, you know, all my education that I was giving people was free. So you can definitely seek those out too. I'm sure that different organizations around here have free nutrition education that people can seek, whether it's like a free nutrition class done by a dietitian, or maybe it's a webinar, or I used to do grocery store tours as well, which is great. So, I mean, there are definitely options out there for people if they can't necessarily afford to pay out of pocket.
And how do you choose an appropriate dietitian or nutritionist?
So, I mean, you can, you know, go on a dietitian's website and figure out, you know, what their approach is.
Is there a certification you know, umbrella?
Yeah, so I would look for someone that has the certifications of RD or RDN, which stands for Registered Dietitian or Registered Dietitian Nutritionist.
I know you also work with athletes.
Yes.
In today's world, it's become a science. You know, when you watch the conditioning of a football player or a hockey player, what they eat and how they train is a science. So how do you go about exploring what is good for, what type of diet is good for what type of sport?
Yeah, so it really depends on the person and the athlete, right? So I might have a person that really wants to lose weight, for example, or maybe someone that really wants to build muscle, right? So again, sports nutrition is very individualized as well, and it's dependent, like you said, on the sport, right? So here we may be having a wrestler, for example, or MMA fighter, right, looks very different than, for example, a runner, right? So again, I would definitely take like a full assessment of the athlete and make recommendations based on their sport and individual needs.
And of course, running in Las Vegas, one is always prone to be dehydrated.
Yes.
Right, so how do you solve that problem? How did you drink your water?
Yes.
I mean, is electrolytes important to put in water in your water, or is it just okay to, you know, drink bottled water?
Yeah, so for like a runner, let's say this runner is going out pretty much every day, right? And they're running for over an hour, they definitely need electrolytes and probably a sports drink to stay hydrated and to get all those electrolytes like you mentioned, because we lose a lot of electrolytes through sweat. Like we lose sodium, potassium, magnesium, even iron as well. So they definitely need to be taking an electrolyte supplement as well.
And what do you, I'm just like machine gunning these questions too, because I'm so interested in this. I mean, so what is your feeling about vitamins and herbal supplements?
So some people can definitely, if they're eating a well-balanced diet, they can definitely get enough vitamins from food. But some people may need to have a multivitamin like you mentioned. So it's really, again, based on the individual and what their diet looks like.
But you have to be lacking to begin with to take a supplement? Is that your feeling?
Well, let's say, for example, like you mentioned, vegetarians or vegans, right? Excuse me. They might need more iron or B12, so then they would definitely be recommended to take a multivitamin with that supplement. But if you are, you know, not a picky eater and you're pretty much eating everything like on this plate for most meals, then you probably don't need a multivitamin. And I would always recommend that you get regular lab work as well to make sure that nothing is low too.
Right. And what about the difference in nutrition for women and compared to men?
Mm-hmm. So that is very different, right? And for example, it depends on the activity level of the man and the woman. So for example, I'm a very active person, but for example, my boyfriend that I live with is not very active. So I actually may need more calories than him, for example. So it's definitely based on activity level, how active the person is. It's not only just dependent on men and women.
Right, but I know there's certain vitamins that women seem to lack more than men, like iron and magnesium, and then there's other vitamins that are important for prenatal care,
Yeah.
and right?
Absolutely. So for prenatal care, for example, it's important that the woman takes folate, definitely iron as well. Like taking a prenatal vitamin is definitely really, really important for that pregnant mom, or even they're saying months leading up to the pregnancy, a woman should start taking a prenatal vitamin. So if you plan on trying to conceive, for example, definitely do it for a few months before you even get pregnant is ideal. And then omega-3s. So omega-3 fats are really, really important too for that pregnant woman as well.
There was a story in the paper today about there's a shortage of baby formula. So can you discuss, give me your opinion of baby formula, breastfeeding, if you're going to transition, when is a good time?
So they always say that like the breast is best, right? Because you're getting nutrients from the mom. But for women that maybe can't breastfeed, for example, that formula is going to be, the second best option for that baby. And I know that they've really formulated the formula to be as close as possible to breast milk, but of course they can't mimic it completely. But, if the woman can breastfeed and if she chooses to, that's definitely best. But if they can't, then formula would be second option. But I know it is really challenging right now with all these shortages, and hopefully, they can get that resolved soon.
Yeah, so going back to runners, before a race, some of them have, a very strict routine, and then post-race, they have another dietary routine, right? So what do you recommend for somebody about to run a marathon?
Sure.
They load up on carbs the night before? I mean, is that still true, or?
Yeah, so it has been shown to be beneficial, and actually doing it like 2 days before the race is a good idea. But I always tell athletes, don't try anything new before race day. So don't go out to a new restaurant and try some exotic food before race day. That's probably not your smartest decision, because that may upset your stomach. And stick to things that you can tolerate, right? Especially that morning. So for example, I would definitely recommend like a carb-rich breakfast a few hours before they go out for a race. So maybe they're having a bagel and a banana and a sports drink before, like 2 to 3 hours before they go out for the marathon. And making sure that they're staying hydrated is really important too, with, again, electrolyte-rich beverages. And then during the marathon, they definitely need to be supplementing with some carbohydrates that are easy to digest. So that's going to actually be like sugary food, which I know is usually not recommended for most people, but for marathoners or long distance runners or any type of athlete, we actually need sugar to give us adequate energy and to keep going throughout the race.
Let's talk about snack food. Okay, do I have to give up my ice cream? Is popcorn better or worse than cheese twists?
So popcorn is
Cheers.
actually a whole grain. So popcorn contains fiber, which is great. And it depends which one you're choosing, right? So if you're choosing like the movie theater popcorn, it's probably going to be really high in fat and salt. But if you're popping some at home yourself, just the kernels, for example, and you're putting a little bit seasoning on it, that's probably going to be a lot more nutritious than that movie theater popcorn. And to answer your question about the ice cream, you don't have to give up your ice cream. You can definitely look for other healthier alternatives. Like on my website, I have like a healthy nice cream that's made out of frozen bananas that's really good if you're looking for a healthier alternative. But you don't need to give up ice cream completely.
Oh, I'm so happy you said that. I had to do that this morning on the way here.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I keep bananas in the freezer.
Oh, great.
And when I get that urge for something cold, like that kind of ice cream urge, I just grab a frozen banana, plain. Just wrap it up in some saran wrap
so
and
good.
put it in the freezer. What did you have for breakfast this morning? Let's talk about your diet.
My diet. Well, this morning, it always changes because I don't like to eat the same thing every day, but I love to have blueberries. It's probably my favorite food. So I had a mix of blueberries, and then I had some toast and some almond butter on top. And I'm usually having that variation.
You try to avoid butter, original butter?
No, I'll eat regular butter, but I like almond butter because it has the healthy fats in it. So it has those monounsaturated fats that we need more of. It also has more protein than regular butter. So it's definitely a more heart healthy option than plain butter itself.
And what will your lunch today look like? Ooh.
That I'm not sure yet, but I always, try to follow the My Plate method where I'm filling at least half my plate with veggies, color, and then some type of protein and carbohydrate.
And you mentioned the color thing. Does that work? I mean, the darker and brighter the color of the food you're eating, the better?
Yeah, so for example, dark leafy greens definitely have more nutrition than, for example, the lighter greens like a romaine. So you're getting a little bit more bang for your buck when you choose those. And those dark fruits like blueberries, for example, or pomegranate seeds, for example, definitely have a lot more antioxidants than maybe some of the other fruits out there. But I always tell people get a variety. So don't just eat broccoli every day, but really have a variety. So have broccoli on your plate plus like 3 or 4 other veggies too, so you get the nutrients from all the different veggies.
What do you think is the healthiest vegetable?
That's hard.
Well, give me a couple. Like broccoli, is that, I mean, I always thought that broccoli seemed to be healthier than peas. Am I right?
would say, those dark leafy greens, so kale, spinach, collards, these are really nutrient dense. They're high in many, many different vitamins and minerals and can be easily incorporated into a diet as well.
And before I forget, because I did want to ask you about cleansing and fasting.
Okay.
Do you believe in either of them?
So your liver is a detoxifier, so it already does it for you. So you don't necessarily need to go on a detox diet or a cleanse. That's really not necessary. Your body already does that for you. So I would say you don't need to do that.
And that would include fasting. Is that eating one meal a day or having intermittent fasting where you don't eat certain hours of the day?
Yeah, so I know a lot of people partake in fasting for various reasons, right? Religious reasons, or maybe they're just doing it to follow the intermittent fasting as like a diet. So if it's temporary, I think it's fine. Again, if it's for like religious reasons, for example, if you're doing it all the time, it may work for you as well, right? It's just kind of based on the individual.
Yeah, and one last question. Organic compared to non-organic. Do you have to have organic food in order to be healthy?
You don't, and I know food prices are going up like crazy, so it can be really, not even attainable or affordable to buy organic. So organic isn't necessarily necessary in all situations, but you can definitely have organic berries or other fruits and veggies if you choose.
Just wash it well.
Just wash it.
Thank you so much, Roxana Ehsani, and you can reach her at her website. It's up there on the screen. And hey, eat healthy. Everything in moderation, right?
Yeah.
When sorry is not enough. Enough said. Call Ed. EdBernstein.com.